As you know, we have a little more relaxed type of shir. And of course, relaxed shir means you got to use your head more. You got to concentrate more. Now, we're up to the Hilchos Suga. Dinim of Suga, Dinim of Maitzi and Suga. We've had the laws of Maitzi, bread, salt. Now the Din of Suga, which teaches us how to eat properly. For example, we'll have more about this later on during the week. The Din of Suga. We want to go to a different field now. First, as an example, the Gemara says, and the Din quotes that you're not supposed to eat like a Zayla V'Sevei, one who shows that he's so hungry that he goes at the food like a behemoth. A person is supposed to eat with derecheretz, politeness. We said that the Shulchan is a mizbeach. Maybe called mizbeach with himla, yida, fachat. A person should not eat while he's standing, like he's ready to run away quickly from the table. Not drink while he's standing. And this, of course, when you were very small children, your mother told you if you eat while you stand, the food goes down to your feet, which is the wrong place for food to go. Because, as we know, the difference between Arizal between Machal and Machal Kedusha, the other wise is the Machal Kedusha goes to the Neish, to the head, to the brain. Food that goes to the brain, like the mud was nivla be'evonim. In the mud there was no waste material whatsoever. It was all nivla be'evonim. It went purely for Kedusha. And anything which is waste, the Gemara says, say temalei. Say your waste is avodah zarah. This has to be Kedusha. As long as you want food for the brain, let's take a lot of depth in the words of the Zayda Kodesh. Won't do any harm to sharpen your mind, start the week off right. We said that the union of, recall, the elementary statement, but not the deeper one, was that the union of lechem, bread, salt, the same letters. Lechem, bread, melach is salt. Both of the same three letters, which are gematria 3 times the name of Hashem. Yud Kei Vav Kei 3 times 26 is 78 gematria melach, salt. Now, what is the reason for the salt in the bread, the salt on the bread? Very good, because the fact is that melach is yesod. This melach is yesod, and lechem is malchus. Amitzi lechem min ha'aretz. Lechem is min ha'aretz, which is malchus. You have to put the yesod on the malchus, close these two last degraded yichud. The Zayda Kodesh says that then you have the lechem gives its power. What is the power of lechem? The power of lechem is malchus is the only form for which there comes shefa, blessings that come to the world. No matter what sfira a person takes to, a person, that is everyone. There's no way you can make contact and draw from this sfira. No way. Hashem created only the sfira of malchus from which you can draw. Which means, of course, that all types of chachmas are void. It's only the emunah which a person can draw from is koyach. Emunah is the yesod tzadik be'emunah sayuchya. And then the side of everything is emunah. So that since the source of all nourishment, the source of life, the source of all shefa is the malchus, therefore it says, "V'lechem v'vav enesh yisod." A person can eat anything in the world, will not become satiated or filled. He does not say bekas hamazon, only because lechem v'vav enesh yisod. So the Kodesh says, "But kiloy halechem levada yichya ha'odam." You cannot have lechem alone. This is to teach us that the malchus alone, without the yichud, without the melach on it, without the yesod, without the tefedes and yesod are actually one is the love. Without the halechem levada, without the combining this, the yichud of tefedes and yesod, lechem has no value, no power. Lechem must be combined with the yesod, and then we see the lechem levav enesh yisod. V'lechem, you have the vav together with lechem levav enesh yisod. Then it supports a person, it gives a person what he needs. Because I'll say that in the words of the Zayda Kodesh we find That's what the Zohar goes to split the first posek. Lechem alone, a person not live. He goes, lechem levad vav. Lechem levad vav. Without the vav, a person cannot live. You have it in the very first posek. Arizal points out. You see that everything is dependent upon the emunah. And therefore, the Zohar says that the Rabbi Nachman, really some different stories, was so particular in this point of emunah that even when he was very wealthy, he had servants to set the table, he had guests to come, or he had to eat by himself. It made no difference. He came home to eat. And the table was the biggest delicacies. He saw nothing. He saw an empty table. He first went to a corner of the room, and there he poured out his heart. Give me, bless me with food. Bless me with lachem. Then he turned around and said, Baruch Hashem, now I see lachem. Because without emunah, which was tefillah, there's no way to get the shefa. What you see there, the food on the table, is not real food. It's the lachem of behemah. Hashem provides the behemoths also. Without behemoths, don't go to daven. We see it there. A lot of people missing. Behemoths missing today from the million. They don't go to daven. Yet they have food at home too, because Hashem provides the behemoths for worms, everything alive. But that's providing for them. That's called the lachma de kisufa. It's called a shameful kind of bread, food. Bread of shame. Bread of shame means that you're taking it for nothing. You don't deserve it. The same as a person who takes a piece of food and eats it without a bracha, he is stealing. Gezel aveh ve'imay. You know, Shia gezel ve'imay. That's what the Tikuney brings out, as was mentioned to you. Verse 12. Baruch atah Hashem, Menachem Mendel Schneerson. Baruch atah Hashem, Baruch base Aleph of, which is the Yes Yud, Menachem Mendel Schneerson Aleph Mem Hey, A, which is the Yes Hey. That bracha comes from, is giving thanks to Aveh Ve'imay, which provides the source. The Yichud L'Malach provides the source of Shefa. The person does not make a bracha, doesn't say these words, that person is Gezel Aveh, as the pasuk says in the Gemara. Therefore, a person should know that what he sees as food is not there unless it's not there as shefa, as coming from Hashem, from the Malchus from heaven, unless it is done through tefillah. That's why the Tikuney says that we say Hametzi Lachem B'Horis. Bread comes from Malchus. Real shefa is the Jews will zecher to know Hamanti Lachem Lachem Min HaShamayim. Lachem Min HaShamayim, that the shefa comes from through Shamayim. Shamayim, what is Shamayim is the Vov. And then that real yichud, that's the greatest, that's the lechem of the Yosef Lamai. We should be zecher to eat this lechem. But the Zohar says further that the Yidduka brings that we see always, we note always that the Lashon in the Gemara is, we speak about the Chu Lachmu B'Lachmi. Go eat my bread, or go fight my battle. Lachmu. The Zohar says this means, why is it called bread? Why is it called battle? Because this means the Gemara, Teda, only Teda Shabbat Peh, is filled with machlekes battles. Go and be Isaac in Teda, and the machlekes in the Gemara. This is the depth of Teda. This is the true lechem, which will fill a person. Why? Because this is Machal Kedusha. Machal Kedusha, because this lechem, this pas, which gives a person, saves a person from the machlis, different types of diseases. Diseases all come from Avedis. This saves a person. This lechem of Teda, Chol of Teda saves a person from these diseases. That's the same lechem. This malchus, we know the Vov, the Vov is Teda Shmachsav, the malchus is Teda Shvalpeh. Chul lachmu b'lachmi. Go and do battle. Teda Shmachsav, it's very passive. It's very simple. You have it straight. Or you have all the machlekes. Why? Because the battles are always to be yachid, to bring to what? To its master. Finish it. The Gemara has a master. Baal, the master is the Chumash. Finish it. Therefore, the Gemara says in Tainus that like Rabidi, let him use the Baraisa. You should know that the Tainus Shabbat Peh is Mikusha, is tied, is married to, tightly to Tainus Shabbat. You will never find anything in the Gemara which doesn't have a posek to back it. everything must have a posek back at the source of the Gemara is the Chumash. This lechem is tied to the vav. The lechem vav and eshisol. This we should be referred to the emes. You did it for this lechem. Moshe Bekdusha. You eat Bekdusha. You have to learn Bekdusha. Yaakov Bekdusha. Which is referred through this. See B'Tav Simcha. The coming of Mashiach now. The base of Mikdash and Heda. Amen. Seuda didn't take place at a meal, which means there are halachas and there are also the musim, the manners, conduct at a meal. Person then says that a person he owns animals or birds, then when it comes time, feeding time, the din is that he is not allowed to eat himself until he first provides for the animals. He cannot provide for his own children until he first feeds the animals. Animals come before his own children. And this would sound like we are the animal society, pro-animal society. This is simply a case of Rachmal for myself to show we have pity on dumb animals. This, of course, doesn't mean that you have to feed first the Yagushes too. They're not dumb. They're not. But the proof of this fact, the Gemara says in the posek, "When a sati eiser, the sod chaladam techa v'chaltam sabata." Occasionally, say, I will give vegetation in the field for your animals, and then you will eat and be satiated. It says first let them techa, then v'chaltam. First your animals eat, and you eat. So take a place the food of an animal before the food of a person. When it comes to drinking, however, we find that Torah says twice the mitzvah of giving a person water before giving an animal. When Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu that you're going to have water come from the desert, water coming from the rock, Hashem said, "Ve'ishkisa esa'eda ve'es'midam." You shall then water the people and then the animals. Fedish says, first give water to the people and then to the animals. We find that Rivka, at the age of 3 years old, Rivka Yemenu was so learned, so well versed in these hidden dinim, that when Eliezer asked her for water, she replied, her words were, she say, Gam Malacha Ashken. Drink, I will also give her animals and camels to drink. So, note that she knew this din, that when it comes to water, it's an exception. Water, people first get and then animals. This, of course, is, and Rosenfeld says this is totally similar to this, totally in the machlekes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Referring to the halachas more now, Hanukkah, Beis Shammai say, the first day of Hanukkah you light 8 candles, the second day 7, until the 8th day you light 1. And these you keep on decreasing the number of candles. Beis Hillel say, you're supposed to start the first day, but then add afterwards. Add the second day, the third, till the 8th. So, Rosenfeld says this means then that Beis Shammai maintain, what's the machlekes? Beis Shammai say you're supposed to feed the light of Torah first the full 8 candles. Please feed it first to the best talmidim, to tzadikim, to lumdim. Then, when you have given so much light out to spread so quickly, so much of it, then you can afford, it will be able to give the light to the more remote corners, the lesser learned ones, until you get to the furthest one, 1 candle long, the weakest person of all, the bigger amoris. As he will say, the other way around. First you get to be mikadev the chaykim. They're the ones that count more. Those are very far. The 1 candle the first night, which means the smallest, the lowest person. You've given light to that far corner. You'll have much more. Your light will increase to those that are closer and closer. And you'll have light again for the biggest of them. Here we say a person should give water is meant, usually has Torah, the light of Torah, to first humans and then animals. This would seem to appear like whom? Like Beis Shammai. Right? But it says here that you're supposed to give the water first to the better ones, to people and then to the animals. Of course, this is not a kasha. This is obvious. There's depth of this, though. This is not the shia for it. So we'll leave this for food for thought, or let's say liquid for thought. One additional item just to close with. We said about the use of manners. The person should eat with table manners, and he should never show that he's gobbling his food. Never show he's craving quickly for it. No matter how hungry a person is, he should eat slowly with a salut, a patience. And of course, the slower he eats, the better his digestion. It does not mean he should chew his food like a camel, alligator. It means he should eat at a normal pace, a normal rate, and not to drag out too long at the table either. Which means, as the Rambam says, the derech l'rutz is the best way. The middle road is the middle path is the best one of all. As we stated too, a person should never eat standing or even drink standing if possible. Unless, of course, taking a fast drink, something like that, and it's okay. But to eat something officially or drink officially should be done in a sitting manner. The table should always be clean. Be sure that it's clean from any dirt of any kind. And if possible, the table should be covered at all times, because it's a matter of respect for the table which is used for this mizbeach. Nowadays, they cover the table for Shabbos or for, let's say, fleshing meals. The reason that nowadays the tables are made with such a fancy formica tops that it's nice to be on the tablecloth. It's considered as though it's a derech covered where the table looks. You don't want to hide expensive formica design with a cheap cotton cloth. However, when it comes to Shabbos, of course, then you have to put on a white cloth. That's a must. When it comes to a fleshing meal, you have to use a different cloth, and the table gets used for milchiks. There you must keep it covered. You should be able to show a true cover to the mizbeach. This is a Torah. This of giving this cover, we should be able to see with our eyes the cover of Hashem, the coming of Mashiach, when he gets into the head of it. Continuing the Hilchos Suda. Dinim that apply during the time of eating the Suda. Most of these dinim, instead, are rules that pertain to manners at the table. It then says you're not supposed to, you're not supposed to hold a large piece of bread and bite out of it. Don't take a half a loaf of bread and bite out of it, because this is not manners, it's not anonymous. Recall, he once mentioned the Gemara says that Yaakov had two talmidim sitting in front of him. One of them broke off a small piece, the second one took a big piece and pulled, tried to get his teeth and pull out of it. So Yaakov said to him, why don't you put your foot on it to give it leverage? You get that much better. Yaakov, of course, taught manners at the table. This is what it's all included in the word derecheretz. Derecheretz means respect and manners. A person should not drink a cup of wine one time. Drinking a cup of wine, you drink it down in one gulp, the whole cup. That's a person who is completely not civilized. Drinks it down in 2 shots, then that's respectful. Drinks it down in 3 times, that's conceit. Unless the cup is very large. Then you can drink it more times than 3. Or if the cup is very tiny, you can drink it in just 1 time. The Gemara says that Arizal's son, Moshe Feinstein, was married to the daughter of Rabbi Yossi ben Shimon ben Lekunya. Yossi ben Shimon ben Lekunya was very, very highly respectful of his son-in-law, because he knew that his son-in-law had spent 13 years in the Mi'ada, the cave, with Rabbi Shimon Yochai. He had gleaned vast knowledge of all the Seidos V'Shamayim, heavenly secrets. Whenever his son-in-law came to visit him, Yossi came out to greet him warmly and to always ask that he give him some information, some divrei Torah that he got from Rabbi Shimon Yochai. And always he gave him a very high type of greeting, and especially a hospitality that fit for one so great. So one time the Gemara says he came to the Yossi ben Shimon. The Muslim Shimon Yochai was offered a cup of wine. He took the cup of wine, he drank it down in 1 gulp. And his father-in-law, Yossi, saw this, he looked, he knew there must be an explanation for this. So he said to the Muslim Shimon, could you tell me a Devat Torah? Tell me what's the rule about drinking wine? How many times did you drink 1 cup of wine? He didn't say you did it wrong, you drank the wine in 1 gulp, it's not nice. He said to him, teach me what is the rule. Moshe Feinstein said the rule is supposed to break it down in two, twice. But when the Gemara says that, it did not mean my kind of appetite. So I have an appetite that's much greater than the average person. That's the first thing. That's one exception. Secondly, it does not mean when you're talking about wine like this, your wine is so good you can't stop in the middle of drinking a cup. And third, he gave me a little dig. Third, he says, talking about a regular cup. You give a small cup like this, well, it doesn't refer to this kind of a cup. Therefore, these three things, he said, are an exception. Of course, this does not apply to drinking necessarily light drink, like soda, water. This refers to wine. A person can drink the water down at one time. Now, second, very important thing, where people should learn respect for others. Same, again, Akiva tried to teach us to respect them. This is where they failed. 24,000 died, not because they were bad. They were great tzaddikim. They had the greatest dedichedus of tzedakah for mitzvahs, the greatest yidus HaKol for their Rebbe. But among themselves, there wasn't that mutual respect. There wasn't that consideration. And what is this consideration? Gemara says, for example, a person should never take a bite out of a piece of food and put it back on the table and expect somebody else to take the same piece of food. There are some people who are that coarse or that hardened, it doesn't bother them if they eat something which somebody else ate from, or drink the remains, shoot in case of somebody else. There are certain people who are very delicate in that respect. They're very refined, they are very sensitive, they cannot take something, they cannot stomach a thing which somebody else ate from. They eat a piece of food which somebody else bit into, to them that they can't stomach it. This could upset them to a point where it could do actual harm, real physical harm, chas v'shalom. The Gemara says it is wrong for a person, very wrong for a person to eat something or drink something and leave over the rest and hand it to his friend and embarrass him that way. Because of embarrassment, he may be forced. He won't be able to refuse it. He'll have to eat or drink this thing, and to him, his stomach will turn over, and it may cause very serious damage. Of course, the Gemara says that this especially applies to a friend, so a person could say, as the Gemara says, one said, what are you giving me, your germs? Keep it. Keep your germs. This is a tu chavedim. The Gemara says that there is a case of a Rebbe in a Talmud. Surely a Rebbe should never offer a Talmud any food if he wants it good. If he's not that delicate, let him take it. But to offer him something from which he bit or drank, should never offer him, because here, out of embarrassment, the Talmud might not refuse, and he might be harmed physically. So again, this depends purely upon the nature of a person. And of course, here we have too, basically, this thing we have in Hilchas Nida. By Isha Nida, where if the Isha, wife is a Nida, the husband cannot eat or drink of her remains. And this whole thing applies to a case where the husband is that callous, he doesn't mind doing it. Not callous, but he's not that delicate. But if he is, these things would not apply at all. Also, interestingly, the Gemara says in Chulin, that as the old saying, the old adage, that what you don't know will not hurt you. The Gemara says in the case of a person who is so delicate that if he would eat something that somebody bit into, he would definitely die. So to such extent it could happen, he would die out of revulsion. He would revolt him so much. So this person would just see somebody bite into something, that's it, he's through. Just watching it and putting it down could make him lose his appetite for days. Take a person like that and bite into something, one or two people, and ones who are not that clean, put it down in front of him, he's a finished person. The Gemara says that if the host does that, he bites into it, and he does the worst thing, worse than that, and then he puts it in front of this person, this delicate person, but the delicate person did not see the host bite into it. He didn't see this. Put it in front of him. It's the same piece of food over which he would die, but he doesn't know somebody ate from it, and he'll eat it with relish. Just don't tell him in the middle of a bite where it came from. But what a person does not know will not hurt him. In this case here, a case where this food would kill him, he doesn't know where it came from. And this, of course, is the general rule today. We eat in a restaurant. The waiter brings out a nice, neat plate of food. It looks very appetizing. You'd be in the back of the restaurant, watch the way they throw the slop on, where it comes from. You'd lose your appetite quickly. But again, what a person doesn't know can't hurt him. So Rambam says But even if it is something which is not too good, not too healthy, when a person is accustomed to it, it cannot do him any harm. These are part of the halachas of manners and respect in the middle of the Suda. We should be zeched to Torah, true Torah. True knowledge of Torah comes only through derech eretz. Derech eretz which comes before Torah. This derech eretz, of course, means the true derech eretz for Torah, for b'nei Torah, and for the source, the mocker of Torah, tzadik and esteemed. Therefore, there is emunah derech eretz, zeched to the true derech eretz. The Menachem says the derech, the path to Eretz Yisrael, which comes only through this kind of derech eretz with Torah, which we see the Binyan Beis Mikdash and Mashiach. Right. Continuing the Hilchai Suda, it then says, the Gemara tells us also, the Gemara of Chulun, I believe, that a person, when he eats, should keep his blood pressure down. In other words, to avoid losing his temper, although, of course, we're not speaking about halacha-wise, losing your temper is the same as a disorder. Speaking now about manners and about health. Health-wise, a person losing his temper during the Suda would harm his digestion irreparably. That's for sure. Side with